And thanks for joining us. This is Good Afternoon Ghana. My name is Audu Moro. This afternoon, Good Afternoon Ghana is catching a flight all the way to Estonia. Why? Because the sitting vice president and the flag bearer of the New Patriotic Party is drawing inspiration from that country on how it goes about its tax regime. The vice president just recently has been outlining outlining a raft of measures that he intends to implement in order to make Ghana's tax very friendly and citizen of easy for the citizen to implement. And we're going to be telling you what these new raft of measures are when I come back from that break. All right, so welcome back. So Ghana has a major challenge when it comes to domestic tax revenue mobilization, with tax to GDP ratio hovering around 14% as compared to an average of between 18 and 20% in sub-Saharan Africa. Now, one of the reasons is that Ghanaians are still, or many Ghanaians are still outside the tax bracket, with estimates suggesting the revenues amounting to about 13% of GDP are not collected because people are outside the tax net. So it is in this spirit that the vice president says he wants to come up with an easier, less cumbersome, less complicated tax regime or tax policies that would make a lot more people come on board and pay. He said that when he met the National Chamber of Commerce and Industry group, and that in itself has come under some scrutiny, where there have been some divergent views that have been expressed. Some saying it's a fantastic idea. Some saying, hold on a minute, it looks a bit tacky. It's unrealistic. It's been tried before. It hasn't worked. What makes the vice president think that this time around it would work, especially when since 1992 we've been talking about the fact that it's brought in the tax net. We're still struggling. Anyway, so to joining us this afternoon to have a conversation about this, what promises to be a very interesting one, it's Francis Timori Boy. He's like a private legal practitioner and also a tax consultant. He'll be joining us via Zoom. And also, Mr. Lord Mensah is an associate professor of finance, University of Ghana Business School, and the man himself was seated right here opposite me in the studios. That's Mr. Kojo Poku Nsafwa Poku. He is the chair of the subcommittee on energy and petroleum, but he's also a businessman. So that's just to put it in context, yeah? He's a businessman. He's been around. He knows quite a bit about taxation. So he is the chairman of the subcommittee on energy and petroleum of Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia's campaign team, who's made time off his busy schedule to come here and shed some more light on where the vice president is coming from. Why does he intend to do this? And can he do it? You know, or it's just a mere political promise that the vice president is throwing out there. I'm told Professor Lord Mensah has joined us now. Professor Lord Mensah, good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us on Good Afternoon Ghana.
Good afternoon and good afternoon to our viewers. Can you hear me loud and clear?
I can hear you very clearly. Very clearly. Thank you so very much. Mr. Kojo Poku, good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us. It's a pleasure having you, sir.
Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Actually, you've been trending the whole of today. I mean, there have been several newspapers.
I woke up this morning like
and
that.
Oh, you woke up at 10?
No, I woke up like that. I woke up seeing the trend. So
yeah, what's happening? I mean, we're told, in fact, the newspapers are actually reporting that you've actually been shortlisted as one of the persons that the vice president is actually considering as the running mate. I mean, as his running mate.
I say amen.
You want it?
That's what. Well, when you're called to serve,
okay,
you say amen and say let's work. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not for me to decide. It's for him. Look, yeah. I'm working for him.
Right.
What a lot of people don't seem to realize is that of all the 10 who contested, I'm the only one who publicly endorsed him when he was still contesting. When I came out of the 5. Right, I actually went to him, shook his hand, and the famous picture of me and him standing, and I endorsed him. I went around the country to about, I think, 2 regions to campaign for him.
Why did you do that?
Because I think he's a fantastic person.
Yeah, but you're campaigning against him.
I was campaigning with him, not against him. I think it was against him. We were all having ideas. My journey ended, and there was 5 people left. after Honorable Alan Chamatin came out. And I felt that Dr. BAWUMIA was the person that I could work with. And I've been doing that since then. I campaigned heavily for him to win the 4th November. And I'm now he's trusted me enough with the biggest ministry. Look, if you look at the sectors, the biggest sector in Ghana is the energy and petroleum. And he thinks that I should be chairman of it. So the man has some level of trust in me. And I appreciate that. And I wake up at 4 a.m. every day to try and work to make sure that I accomplish that goal. But the most important thing is that if somebody see your good work, and I'm hearing in the news media that, hey, my name is up there in light with the top guys in this country to be considered as a running mate to doctor, it's good news. I will only say amen.
Are you saying that until the newspapers reported, you had no idea that
I have no idea? But because the thing is that I have the belief that there's no need to lobby for this thing. You don't need to lobby. I run for the same position he ran for, right? He came first. I was, I think, 8th. Okay, so look, I supported him. We are working together. I have a constant communication with him. Every time I have thoughts, I put on paper, I share with him. He comes back and says, good idea, change this one, or let's think about it this way. So look, we are in communication. That is why I'm happy to come and sit and discuss this further on this tax thing that he talks about, because I feel strongly about it as well. But no, I have never had a conversation with anybody about this thing. But like I said, if my name comes up and I get a call, I will say amen. Why not?
What's been the reaction since the publication came out today?
Well, the first person who's not so happy is the missus, obviously. Because she wasn't happy when I was trying to make her the first lady.
Okay.
And she thought all this is over. And now this morning we wake up to the news that I'm being considered. And again, she's like, do I have to? You know, but it comes with the territory. We all would saddle our boots and get the work done.
To be fair to you, we didn't invite you to talk about it. We invited you to talk about the tax policies that the Vice President is proposing. And so to be fair to you, it's an ambush. And I want to be very honest about it. Coach Joseph had nothing to do with this. It's just an ambush. And I sincerely apologize for that, because somebody could have decided that they weren't going to talk. But just finally, if Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia really picks you up as a running mate, what would be that? What is it about you that would make you the right fit for that job?
Look, I know me, but he is the leader.
Okay.
He's the one that has his dots in a row, and he thinks that I fit somewhere in that dots. So it has to be a conversation between the two of us.
Okay.
Everybody who knows Kojo Poku knows who Kojo Poku is.
All right.
I ran around the country 3 times to campaign to be president. There are qualities that everybody knows. There are issues that everybody knows what I feel strongly about. So I don't think I would have to reiterate all those things. All I'm saying is that, look, if he thinks that I fit in his grand plans, we will sit and basically, like the saying goes, I will take orders and see what duties he has me to perform.
Okay.
And I'll take it from there.
All right, then. That's Kojo Poku, Safa Poku. He was actually one of the candidates or aspirants who contested in the 2023 presidential race of the New Patriotic Party. He's here as he's actually the chair of the subcommittee on energy and petroleum of the Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia campaign team. And he was just reacting to media reports that he was actually being considered for running mate. And so it's just clearly an ambush. And sometimes we journalists, we do that. But let's go to the main reason why you're here. Now, we had the Vice President when he met the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry folks, and we was talking about some new policy proposals. He's talking about some flat rate tax policy. He's talking about amnesty. He's talking about business-friendly citizen something. Where is the Vice President coming from? Why these policies?
Look, I have been a private businessman for 23 years.
Right.
And anybody who has been either self-employed, whether small-scale, large-scale business in Ghana,
right,
you know the problems that you get with the GRA. Before, it was not GRA, it was Inland Revenue, but now GRA.
Absolutely.
Okay? To start with, you have to have a listening leader who goes around listening to the cry of the people. Then you now come up with solutions for the cries. The cries of business community in Ghana is that taxation in Ghana is very cumbersome.
Right.
And he wants to make sure that look, there's this talk of widen the gap net, widen the tax net. But how do you do that? And he's finding a very innovative way to widen the tax net. Right. So he says that, look, when I become president, and inshallah he becomes president, he will give everybody a tax amnesty. What is a tax amnesty? Look, there are hundreds and thousands of businesses in Ghana that are having back and forth with the taxman because the tax code, how the GRA calculate the taxes, is cumbersome. Sometimes you will do something without no fault of your own. Taxman will come and say, look, because you didn't do this, you didn't do that, this many months and years have passed, wow, these are the penalties. I have personal experience where my file was at Legon office. They moved my file from Legon to Medina. Now, I was doing some work with Cocoa Board, right? CMC, Ghana Cocoa Marketing Company. That I get withholding tax. So all my withholding tax, I have sent it to Legon. When they sent the file, I don't think they sent everything on my file to Medina. Now, Medina writes me a letter and said, look, Mr. Poku, we've done a tax assessment, this is how much you owe us in taxes. I'm like, no, it's not possible because my withholding taxes alone is more than what you are telling me I owe.
Okay.
They said, no, we don't have anything on your file.
Right.
So can you bring us copies of the withholding files, withholding tax receipts that you have? Moro, whose duty is it? I have presented you the withholding tax receipts in the Legon office. You move my file to Medina. You don't take that file with me,
Right.
with you, right? Then now I am having to go and chase my old accountant, try and get the letter that he submitted this whole thing with, then take that letter, take it to Medina. So I am the one who is having to what? Do extra work to prove myself to the taxman that I am not liable. Because the reason is that the law is on their side.
Right.
If you don't do that legwork and they find you culpable of those taxes, they will take you to court.
Right.
So we, the businessmen, are having to now do more. It's like we have this withholding tax. You go to Bolga and do some work. You come to Accra to file your taxes. And you have to go back to Bolga to go and take out those withholding tax receipts to bring it back to Accra to file your taxes. Why? You see, so the whole system is cumbersome. And look, every business you want to start, everything you want to tender for, everything to do, they tell you bring your tax clearance certificate. If your tax file is not up to date, you will not get a tax clearance certificate.
Right.
So you are now having to now discuss and in most instances come to some level of settlement with the taxman in order to be able to move on with your business. What Doctor is saying is that when I become president, I will give an amnesty to everybody who is having such litigation, such back and forth, these problems with GRA. Let's zero out all these disputes. It doesn't mean that if you have a tax obligation, you will not pay.
Right.
People who have tax obligations will pay. But those that have penalties, those that have disputes, where, look, I have a friend whose penalty is about 5 million Ghana cedis.
Okay.
Right? And it's an albatross. How is he going to find 5 million Ghana cedis? So when you have these instances, he wants to now say that, look, let's all come back. People have businesses they are no longer using because that businesses have indebtedness.
Okay.
Right? Let's all come back to the table. Let's all go to zero among these litigation, these back and forth, all these disputes that we have with GRA. GRA, please, zero out everybody. Let's start from a clean slate and let now try to increase that tax net that we talk about.
Okay.
Ghana has 14% tax to GDP ratio, right? South Africa, which is doing very well than most sub-Saharan countries, has 27.
Right.
Right? You go to OECD countries where we go to borrow, 34%. So you look, we are 14% because
Right.
tax to GDP is low. But what a lot of people don't seem to understand is that corporate tax, in 2022, we made about 79.3 billion,
Right.
revenue from taxes, right? 79.3 billion in 2022. Out of that 79 billion, only 18 billion is from corporate taxes. Only 18. So even if Dr. BAWUMIA decides that let's zero out and start afresh, it's only 18 billion that is coming out of your 79 billion.
Right.
So it's not a big deal. People are saying, oh, how is that going to affect? How is that going to do this? How is that going to do this? But you see, with all these rankles coming up, oh, he said harassment and this. Look, let's not diverse. Let's not take out the importance of what Doctor is trying to do. Taxes are killing businesses in Ghana.
Let's watch before you go ahead. And Josiah, if the video is ready, can we show the video of the vice president, what he said? And then we'll come back and read some reactions, and then Mr. Kojo Poku can respond to some of these concerns that have come up or some of the criticisms that have come up since the Vice President spoke. Josiah.
Dr. BAWUMIA highlighted the importance of a tax-competitive country, adding that his office will introduce a simple flat rate tax and grant tax amnesty to all individuals and businesses when he's made president in 2025.
We have had a situation where there's so much dispute between GRA and businesses over what is owed. I am aware of a company that is being charged, something like 50 million Ghana cedis, and they say they are not even worth up to 5 million. Right? There's so much going because of the harassment and the need to make money. So we are going to start with a clean slate in 2025. And that is why in 2025, we are going to grant a tax amnesty to all businesses and individuals and start afresh.
Dr. BAWUMIA is positioning the country towards taking advantage of the fourth industrial revolution.
I am very, very clear in my mind that Ghana can be the foremost country on this continent. We can. It is possible. When you look at the role of the private sector, it is very, very clear, and philosophically, I'm very, very much aligned to the private sector. And it is very, very clear that for us to do what we ought to do to be the leading, amongst the leading countries on this continent, then the private sector must play its appropriate role.
President of the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Dr. Clement Osei Amwako, while acknowledging efforts of government, called on the flag bearer of the new patriotic party, Dr. Mahmoud BAWUMIA, to utilize the private sectors in actualizing his policies.
Private sector is there for you. As long as you grow with us, we'll work with you. And some of the key contracts that you would have used your limited resources to do, we are ready to take up alongside with you. But the key issue is that, His Excellency, when you come to power, we plead with you that payment for those work that we have done as businesses must be on time.
Dr. Frank Bano, member of the Identifiable Group, believes Dr. BAWUMIA's vision is possible.
On 7th of February, His Excellency made it clear that it is high time that we allow private investment into the provision of critical amenities such as roads. And this is something that so far, some of the meetings that we've had, the private sector is willing to lead. Not just the case whereby government will go and look for the money, but then the private sector will go and look for the capital and the necessary expertise to provide that road. So that is exactly what we are doing.
So the Vice President, when he met the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, where he was telling them about his new tax proposals, policy proposals, and you saw the reactions that greeted it. There have been some reactions, but I'm not going to come to those reactions yet, where we've had some labor unions from the Ghana Revenue Authority expressing some concerns about the Vice President commentary. I'm not going to attend to that yet. Let me just say that I have a Francis Timori boy who is a private legal practitioner, so a tax consultant. Let's bring him in. Let's let him also share his insights so that Kojopu can respond to some of the issues that he'll be saying. Also, Professor Lord Mensah, who is an associate professor of Finance, University of Ghana Business School. I'll start with Francis Timori Boy. Francis, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us on Good Afternoon Ghana.
Thanks for having me, Moro.
Right.
The name is Timor.
Oh, Timor. Sorry about that. Francis Timor. I like
fine.
your name, actually. Francis Timor. Anyway, Francis, so what are your general thoughts about what the Vice President intends to do when it comes to these policy proposals he's throwing out? I mean, you are the expert. What do you make of it?
So his proposal on the technology or using technology to drive tax administration is very fantastic, and we are hoping to see that, because now everything happens online, and therefore if you continue to use the manual system, you are pricing yourself from the market. I mean, businesses are doing transactions online. And so you need to take your tax collection also online. That is fantastic. There are some challenges with some of the proposals. For example, the flat rate. In as much as it is simplifying the tax administration, flat rates where you have a larger population of your citizens or taxpayers in a lower income tax bracket presents some challenge. Why am I saying that? Any flat rate system in taxation, we say, is regressive. And if it is regressive, the poor or the lower income group, they suffer the most because they are going to pay the same amount as a rich person. In Ghana, we started implementing something we call the high net worth individuals. These high net worth individuals are people who are wealthy and they have money. So the assumption is that they should pay more. If this flat rate comes and we are saying that they should all pay the same rates as the poor person, then we are missing on some critical portion of tax principle called the equity principle. In Estonia, yes, there is the flat rate. However, they have introduced several measures to deal with this inequity that I'm talking about. For example, businesses, if you reinvest your profit, you don't pay tax on it. And for individuals, there are huge, thresholds, tax-free threshold, which is granted to them so that it will, take care of this equity issue that I'm talking about. Again, there are some tax credits which are also available. In Ghana, the free tax amount that you can have is around 4,800 cedis a year. And so, in as much as we think that it is going to simplify the tax system, we may have some problems there unless we try to, structure the system in such a way that the poor are catered for. Now, lastly, on the tax amnesty. See, tax amnesty is supposed to be implemented for a period, and it is normally for a short term. If you continue to use it too many, you are discrediting the tax system, and everybody, especially those who are compliant, they will sit back and watch you because they know they can predict that you are going to implement a tax amnesty. 2012, we did one tax amnesty where we forgave everybody their taxes and their interest and penalties. 2017, we did one, which was even not successful because after the tax amnesty, we expect a lot more taxpayers to come into the tax net so that they come back and then pay the taxes. 2017 wasn't successful. 2022, just like 2 years ago, we did another one, which we saw interest and penalties being waived. And again, tax amnesty does not only address corporate tax, it cuts across all tax types, PAYE, VAT, get fund, and almost all tax types. The penalties and then the interests are forgiven. Sometimes even the tax amount itself is forgiven. So our problem is that if you continue to use such tool in your tax administration, if I'm a compliant person, and I know that you are going to grant me a tax amnesty, I won't comply. I won't pay the taxes. I will collect the taxes. I won't pay. Use it for something else. And in Ghana, we know the challenges that the GRA is having. So if I'm not compliant, the GRA is unable to find me and I don't come out, in the end, I know my sins are going to be forgiven. Just like allowing people to commit sins and assuring them that you won't be punished for that. So I think that whilst it is good and it's for a short term, the continuous use of it is not good for our tax system, especially when we just concluded one in 2022. So I would have wished that this amnesty is a little bit delayed. Let's go for the technology that he's proposing. Let's ensure that compliance is full at its maximum, and then we encourage people to pay their taxes. What we can do, and I agree with my brother in the studio, what we can do is that the penalty regime in Ghana is so harsh. It's so harsh. I mean, if you fail to file your tax returns a day, it's 500 cedis, and then each day we're going to charge you 10 cedis. Again, if you fail to pay taxes, the interest is 125% compounded monthly using the statutory, the BOG rate. This is so high. Now that the BOG rate is around 29%, you're going to increase it by 125%, and we're going to compound it monthly. So at the end of the day, the penalty is even more than the tax liability. And I think that we simply have to go back and revise the penalty regime that we have in Ghana. That will solve our problem.
So what essentially you're saying is that the elephant in the room is the penalty regime. That's what we need to tackle. And once we're able to tackle it, more and more people will be incentivized and motivated to come and pay the tax. I'll come back to you, and because there have been some other reactions about the fact that the proposal has mixed effect. You've talked about just one. There's also one where we're saying that some people may feel that once they go there once they take advantage of the tax amnesty, the tax will catch them. And once it catches them, possibly the system or the government will now find out how many more years have you failed to pay your tax, and then the person will be in trouble. So there are some persons who are, looking at this with some kind of hesitation as well. I'll find out from you whether indeed that in itself it's a problem, it's a challenge, or it's much ado about nothing. Professor Lord Mensah, let me ask you this. Now, we are under an IMF program. One of the things that the IMF wants us to do is that the IMF wants us to do fiscal consolidation. Now, you're also having a situation where the vice president says, when I'm made president, or if I become president of this country, I'm going to grant tax amnesty. That would definitely have implications for the fiscals, wouldn't it?
Yes, obviously. We have an IMF program that has been emphasizing on fiscal consolidation, i.e., having a target of tax to GDP of about 18%, which, earlier on you indicated in your introduction that we're doing around, 14%. Now, it calls for structural, maintenance of our tax system that will continuously build up into, the target that we are looking for. So I see a situation where, what the vice president is promising doesn't seem to be compatible with, our IMF program. We have a program where we're also looking at revenue enhancement, but then we fail to look at the expenditure side, which has to do with cutting down expenditure. And obviously, it will not be politically wise to do that. So I think, political administrators have not been, going in that direction. And so a situation where we have this program and you promise that you're going to, give tax amnesty and tax incentives, it's quite, problematic. I do understand that if you give tax amnesty and tax, free, obviously you're going to signal, businesses that their after-tax profit is likely to increase. But, we also have to look at the long-term effect. The long-term effect of, granting this tax amnesty on our, state balance sheet. Clearly, we have a country where, our avenues for raising money has become a problem. And i.e., we are relying on, taxes and then financing from the short-term market, which is only, treasury bills that we are using to finance our budget deficit. So effectively, it tells you that if you give tax incentives, then you are more or less, creating a cost. Then I'm expecting the vice president to tell us where he's ready to, net off this cost that will be created from these incentives. Of course, if you are to provide these incentives and then the cost is created, I heard from the gentleman in the studio that in a way is going to boost, businesses to file in for their tax return and then boost their confidence in paying, their taxes. But the question is, looking at the economic situation we find ourselves in, are we ready to go on that trial? Are we ready to do a test as far as, tax policies are concerned? This is not the time to, throw in a trial and error to say that, it's a policy. I'm going to try it. If it does not work, I'll revert it. We have to be careful. And I've always been, drumming about how we play politics with, our tax, handles. this tax inconsistencies in itself has a way of scaring investors because they don't know when, you can grant an amnesty. You don't know when you can throw in, new taxes. So I think we have to be careful on that score. But then also I mentioned, the long-term, sustainability of such an intervention. I see it to be an intervention. So even if it's supposed to be introduced, I'm not expecting that it is going to be for a longer term, maybe for a while. But for now, looking at our economic situation, I don't think it's something that we may have to look at from where I sit.
Okay, so please hang in there. Kojo Pogo's here. He works directly under the supervision of the Vice President. He works closely with the Vice President. He's taking some of these feedback and some of these reactions and concerns on board. I'll pick his thoughts generally on some of the things that you've said. So if I want to summarize everything, so that the taxman says it's a good idea, but he has a few concerns. Now, one of it is that there are people who today would want to say, well, Charlie, there's tax amnesty coming next year on Timinguchi, tax, I won't pay. And then we'll stay on. Meanwhile, we need revenue. And then there's another group of people who would feel that, well, this could be some kind of a grand ploy to rope us in. Once they rope us in, we will be found out, basically. And so they may, look at this with some kind of hesitation. How do you respond to some of these concerns, plus what the Professor Lord Mensah said?
The game has changed.
Okay.
And that's a lot that a lot of people are not beginning to realize.
What is this game and what has changed?
The game is what now you have as your tax identification number is your Ghana card number.
True.
Before, there was only 4% of people that had a TIN number.
Yeah.
Now, 84% of the population have a Ghana card number. So in default, the Vice President is now saying that, look, your Ghana card number is now your tax identification number.
Okay.
So all of a sudden, GRA has 84% of the total population in their database.
Right.
Now, the amnesty that has happened in the past was amnesties to go back to the old tax regime that we have. This amnesty is to go back to what? A new tax code.
What's the difference?
The difference is that he wants to scrap the existing tax policy that we have. Now, I've not heard him say the flat rate for corporate tax. I've not heard that. The flat rate in his speech,
yes.
Let me land.
Please go
The
ahead.
flat rate in his speech was for 20-footer and 40-footer containers coming through the port. I have not heard in his speech where he mentioned that he was going to do flat rate for corporate tax.
And VAT.
Well, I've
and
not heard,
excise.
I've not heard that. No.
Okay,
So basically, the manifesto team, who is in charge of those, will come up with those recommendations. And there's going to be an extensive consultation with the tax experts to know what the new tax code is going to be.
Right.
What Doctor wants to do is to basically scrap the existing tax that we have, the existing tax system, the existing tax code, scrap it. So the amnesty is not like the old amnesties where we have gone back to the old system where it's still cumbersome. Because as my brother said, yes, everybody knows that the penalty for non-compliance or oversight is too huge. Okay, so what Doctor wants to do is that, look, most people don't do self-assessment. He wants self-assessment for every individual. So what you're going to have is that the minute you have a Ghana card, you are obliged year on year to do a self-assessment online.
Okay.
And you will pay a certain amount to the taxman on a threshold basis. So we are going to scrap the existing system and introduce a new tax code, but that will be done through extensive consultation.
Okay.
Okay. Now let me hit on something that my brother said. Look, when you have amnesties that people say that, oh, amnesties are repetitive and people think it's going to come back.
They would abuse it.
But that is not what the problem is now. The problem is that, look, the reason we are even talking about tax amnesty is that we are going to start something new. If you are starting something new, you want everybody on board.
Right.
Now, you sit at home, you don't have to decide whether you file or not file. You have a Ghana card number. So automatically, you are in the system. So the game changer is the Ghana card number, which puts 84% of the entire population in the system.
Okay.
As time goes on, now you can't go to your bank and do any bank transaction without your Ghana card, right? So now, as time goes on, failure to not file, you will not have access to certain services.
I get it.
You understand?
I get
so that's the difference between.
So that's what you mean by that's the game. That's the game changer.
That's the game changer.
Francis, does that answer your concerns? The game has changed. We've digitalized. We've formalized largely the sector, And so you cannot run away. You will be found out. Francis, can you hear me?
Not exactly.
Okay.
Because not exactly because 10 Ghana card replacing 10 has been with us since April 2021. When the announcement was made, some of us said that, look, the fact that you have brought in many people into the tax net does not necessarily mean you are going to have exponential increase in your tax revenue. Something must be done. So unless I get some convincing evidence that from 2021, when we introduced the Ghana card as a 10, people have started paying tax. Tax assessment is first identifying the taxpayer. When you identify the taxpayer, then you proceed to assess the person's income from investment, business, or employment. When you do those things, then the person can proceed to go and make the payment. So I'm not sure whether the 10 can or 10 has really resulted in an increase in tax revenue. But he made a comment on the scrapping the tax code. It's quite, I think we need to look at it very critically because our tax law was replaced in 2015. And indeed, the one that we are using now, if you compare with other jurisdictions like Tanzania, Uganda, we have a similar tax code. And I believe that it meets the international standard. What we can do is to revamp it and then do more of the administrative measures. But to scrap it completely may be too drastic, especially in times like this. I am happy if he says that, or if he clarifies that the flat rate applies to the port system. Trust me, the port system, the tax lines, over 22 tax types paid at the port, that is too much. So if we say that we are going with the flat rates at the port, I believe the business community will be happy and importation will be much cheaper than the way we see it. Maybe we can also consider the VAT, the indirect taxes, because right now we have too many multiple indirect taxes, Get Fund, NHIL, COVID-19, VAT, and some of them, they are even cascading effects. So possibly, if the manifesto is not ready, then the team needs to clarify some of these policies to us and again, engage with the experts.
Okay.
So that the experts who have other experience from other jurisdictions can make contributions
now, Francis,
to make this policy
the
a viable one.
Francis Kojo talks about the fact that these taxes we're talking about, the flat rate taxes we're talking about, actually is in respect of our brothers who are into the import and export business, into the import business. They are the ones the Vice President is referring to, not corporate tax, not income tax, not excise tax, not VAT. I don't know whether that changes the dynamics of this conversation. I'll come back to you on that. Let me also go to Professor Lord Mensah for his thoughts on that. Now, Prof, you heard Kojo Poku say that, look, the game has changed, and the game changer is the Ghana card. Once we have the Ghana card, look, it would make it easier for people to be identified and for people to pay a lot more tax. So don't worry about the revenue losses. Remember that the Vice President also listed a number of other levies and taxes that he intends to scrap, like the betting tax and so on. He says, don't worry at all. What do you make of that?
Yeah, you see, I keep on emphasizing on the current state of our economy. I mean, a situation where you have businesses complaining that they're not that active, their revenues are going down, obviously taxes are tied to revenue. And so if you want to introduce a new measure, you may have to ask yourself, how compatible is this new tax measure with the current economic situation? We may have to be careful. And like I mentioned earlier, this is not a time to do try and error. This is not a time to be touching on, our economic policies as it has been structured into the IMF program. Consistency is very, very important for the IMF program. If we have a tax, system that we are using to make up some target, I think we better maintain it rather than, going to introduce something that, may derail our, target for the IMF.
Yeah, but Prof, Kojo talks
and
about
remember,
that. Prof, Kojo talks about the fact the system has now been formalized. It's been digitalized. And so that will serve as the springboard for massive and effective revenue mobilization drive. You don't agree with him?
That makes sense. It makes sense. But what I'm saying is that we have to be careful how we grant this tax amnesty and tax incentives.
Okay.
Clearly, it is going to be a loss to the state. And we have to ask ourselves, where are we going to rake in within the same economic system that we can use to offset the possible losses, and then think about the gains? You know, whichever way you look at it, this is a policy that we may have to look at the cost and the benefit that it will give us.
Okay.
And I'm saying that we already have, you know, a tax structure or a tax system that is already into the IMF program, and we've been making gains. And we saw from the reviews that the IMF came to do. So why do we have to introduce a new, you know, tax structure, or possibly tweak the tax structure that will possibly derail the targets that we'll be making, you know, into the IMF program? So from where I sit, we have to be careful, because if we don't handle it very well, we may end up borrowing more from the market. Because whatever the case may be, you know, government may lose revenue if with this, you know, incentives are introduced, and then we do not make the necessary, you know, target as expected. Then obviously government may have to find a way to fill in, and that is going to be from borrowing. And you know, where are we going to borrow from? Is it on the same money market that has already been choked, that we've been saying government should find a way, innovative way, to make sure that we move away from overly concentration of the money market financing? So I think we need to be careful. If we have a structure that is working, let's not play politics with it. At the end of the day, if we don't take care, it's going to be a way of sacrificing the long-term prospect of the country relative to, I mean, somebody's political gains. And that may not be, I mean, good for us as a country. So I think we need to be careful if we are making promises. And like I said earlier, you know, this is going to build up into tax inconsistencies. And, you know, we know the economic impact of having a tax system that is not consistent. It scares business away. And one way or the other, you might think, okay, fine, you are bringing these incentives and the motivations to, I mean, boost, you know, businesses. But we should also know that we have a history where taxes have been removed in a particular budget, and it was reintroduced in the mid-year budget review, which have a serious, you know, economic, I mean, impact. So we have to be careful. I mean, we appreciate that the Ghana card is going to play a major role in our, you know, tax system deliveries. And, you know, no doubt about that. It is an investment that has been made, you know, which we have to leverage on it to increase our revenue generation. But maybe the timing, you know, are we saying that the timing is now? Now that, you know, the economy is one way or the other grounded, where businesses are complaining of their revenues. I mean, if you provide those incentives, where is going to be the production that will come out to offset, you know, this, what do you call it, economic cost of the incentives that the state will be providing? So we have to be careful how we go about it. I think, you know, the timing is a bit too early, and looking at the economic situation and then the IMF program that we find ourselves in.
All right, Professor Lord Mensah, thank you very much for time. And I'll take a short break. When I come back, we'll end the conversation with Mr. Kojo Poku. And also, let me say a big thanks to Francis Timor. Thank you so very much for time. I'll get Kojo Poku to respond to the concerns that you have raised before he takes leave of us. I'll take a short break. I'll be right back. All right, welcome back. We're talking about the Vice President's proposal about some tax reforms that he intends to implement if or when he becomes the president of this country, and when subjecting that to some kind of interrogation or some kind of scrutiny. Kojo Nsafwa Poku is the chair of the Dr. Mahmoud BAWUMIA's campaign team, but in charge of petroleum and energy. He's been here throwing some light, shedding some more light, and responding to some of the concerns you have. I also have had Francis Timor. He's a tax consultant, and also Professor Lord Mensah, who is an associate professor of finance. So I'll leave the rest of the talking to you because you've heard everything that is to say.
My brother said that this is too radical. Yes.
Yeah.
The man believes that for Ghana to move forward, we need something radical. That one is not negotiable.
Right.
Dr. Mahmoud BAWUMIA wants to do something radical to basically change, because it's the only way that we can move forward. You know, if we think that we will do these things and achieve these things by going slow, my brother, look, he tells that, the man says that this has to be, if we have a system that is not working, is this system working? I thought everybody is up in arms that our tax system doesn't work.
Yeah.
Expand the tax net, expand the tax net.
Yeah.
We only had 4% of the population with what you call a TIN number, tax identification number, only 4%. Now, when Dr. BAWUMIA digitalized with the Ghana card and said that the Ghana card number has to now be our TIN number, guess what? 84% of the population is now in the tax bracket. When we talk about expanding the tax bracket, how much more can you expand the tax bracket from 4% to 84% overnight with just one person's vision? So look, one, there need to be a radicalization of this economy. And Doctor is very serious on radical approaches, because without radical approaches, we wouldn't achieve much. Bear in mind, he has 4 years to turn the country around, and he's going to turn the country around in 4 years. So when people say that, look, we need to be careful on what we have on IMF, look, my brother, like I said earlier, out of the 79 billion revenue we get from taxes, only 18 billion is from corporate taxes, self-employed and otherwise. Okay? So if you even lose that in a year, right, as a shuffle, look at the good side of that going forward, all the people that will come on board. Now, the gentleman said that scrapping the tax code is radical. Yes, we need to. Something needs to be done. That is why, look, if anybody understands numbers, I don't think any of the people who are running for president in this country understand numbers than Dr. Mahmoud BAWUMIA. So he knows the numbers. He's worked it out and knows that, look, at the end of the day, if I do this, and overnight I have 84%, from 4% to 84% of the population in the tax bracket, he's ticked the first box of expand the tax net. Now that we've expanded the tax net and everybody has a Ghana card number, you can now do a self-assessment online. So everybody will do a self-assessment. You cannot lie about having a car. You cannot actually lie about how many cars you have. Do you know why?
But Francis did ask the question.
Let me land on that point.
2021.
Let me land on that point.
Yes.
2021, these new things were not there. What I'm saying to you is that today, if you're doing a self-assessment online, you can't lie about the number of cars you have. Do you know why? Because DVLA, you need your Ghana card number for DVLA.
True.
You need your Ghana card number for imports of all the cars you have.
Yes.
You need your Ghana card number to go to the bank.
Right.
So you cannot lie to the taxman online, because the Ghana card number can trace every property you have. Your digital address is linked to what? Your Ghana card number. So look, let's not anybody think that what happened in 2021 is what's going to happen going forward.
Okay.
Doctor is promising a refresh.
Okay.
Let's refresh in 2025. Those that cannot come on, there is no need to collapse your company and go and form a new company because you have tax disputes with the taxman. Okay. Keep your old account. All these contractors who are not able to go back for tax clearance certificate, they need to go and register a new company. They don't have any track record. You don't need to do any of that. We are going to give the amnesty. Then we all start from day one. Okay. Now, from that point, you realize that all the bolts and nuts are screwed. And then the 85 or the 90% of the population we have on, as a result of what? The tax, the Ghana card number, you are able to assess them properly.
Right. In just 30 seconds, what do you intend to tell the labor unions who are not happy with the vice president?
Well, look, we the businessmen are saying the harassment, not the vice president. Well, my brother, we the businessmen are saying the harassment too. Go to Makola.
Is it true they're harassing
No, but
you?
go to Makola and speak to my mothers and my aunties in Makola, and they will tell you. They will bring someone to come and sit there to now calculate that. Go and find out. You're a journalist. Take your camera and your mic to Makola and ask the Makola women about the GRA and the way they are treating them with VAT. It's we the businessmen that are saying it. Well, in this case, I'm saying this as a businessman.
But even if they're harassing you because you set unrealistic targets,
well, that's
you
fine,
are the ones who are setting the targets.
That's fine, but you see, you can achieve your work. Moro, you are asked to be a presenter.
Right.
You are good at your job, right? You don't interview me through harassment.
True.
Right? So you can do your work without necessarily. Look, I get a call several times by somebody telling me that he's from GRA, where is my office location, he's coming to assessment. I don't know who you are. You're calling me out of the blue that you're coming to office to do assessment. What assessment?
Thank you very much. Kojo Nsafwa-Poku is the chair of the Subcommittee of Energy and Petroleum and also a businessman, and so knows exactly what he's talking about when it comes to taxation. My name is Audumor. I don't own a businessman. I don't own a business, sorry. I'm not a businessman, but I work here at Metro Television. Thanks for watching. Good afternoon, Ghana. Have a good day. Bye-bye.